Arman Khan froze mid-sentence, his hand trembling slightly as he held the leather-bound menu. Because the young Russian waitress, with blonde hair tied in an elegant bun, had just leaned down toward his elderly mother and whispered in flawless Urdu, Auntie G, Op, Ko, Chaya, Coffee Pasand Hai, Main Op, Kalai Kuch, Mitha B, La Shakti Hoon, and his mother's weathered face lit up like a child seeing snow for the first time, her eyes glistening with tears of unexpected joy in this foreign land where she so rarely heard the language of her heart. The restaurant, an upscale fusion establishment called Pearl Garden in the heart of the city, was filled with soft golden lighting and the gentle hum of conversation. But in that moment, everything else faded into silence as Arman watched his mother reach out and gently touch the waitress's hand, responding in Urdu with a voice full of emotion. "Betty, you speak our language. How is this possible?" The waitress, whose name tag read Katya, smiled warmly, her blue eyes reflecting a depth of kindness that seemed to transcend culture and geography. And she replied softly, "I learned it for someone very special. Auntie G, I will tell you the story, if you have time." Arman, a self-made billionaire who had built an empire in tech and real estate, had seen countless remarkable things in his 36 years, had negotiated with world leaders and closed deals worth millions, but nothing had ever struck his heart quite like this moment, this simple, profound act of cultural bridge building by a stranger in a waitress uniform. His mother, Farida Khan, was visiting from Lahore for the first time in 3 years, and Arman had seen how lonely she had been, how she struggled with English, how her eyes dimmed when surrounded by unfamiliar sounds and faces, and yet here was this young Russian woman bringing light back into those eyes with nothing but words spoken in love. "Please," Arman found himself saying, his voice softer than he'd intended. "Please sit with us for a moment. I would very much like to hear this story." Katya glanced toward the restaurant manager, a stern-looking man near the kitchen, but it was a quiet Tuesday evening, and the restaurant was only half full. So she nodded and pulled up a chair, smoothing down her simple black uniform with its crisp white collar. "My name is Ekaterina Volkova," she began, her accent a beautiful blend of Russian and something softer. "But everyone calls me Katya. I came to this country 5 years ago, with nothing but a suitcase and a dream. Running from a difficult past I don't wish to burden you with." She paused, her fingers intertwining nervously on the white tablecloth. "I was working 3 jobs, cleaning offices at night, serving at a cafe in the morning, and here in the evenings, and one day, about 3 years ago, an elderly Pakistani woman came into the cafe where I worked." Farida leaned forward, completely absorbed, and Arman found himself doing the same. "Her name was Mrs. Rashida Beg, and she was the kindest soul I had ever met," Katya continued, her voice growing tender with memory. "She came every single morning at 8 o'clock, always ordered plain tea and a piece of toast, and she always sat alone by the window, watching the world go by with these sad, homesick eyes." Katya's own eyes grew misty. "I noticed that she struggled to order, that other servers would grow impatient with her broken English. So I started learning a few Urdu phrases from the internet, just simple things like 'How are you?' and 'Your tea is ready.' And the first time I greeted her in Urdu, she cried." Farida gasped, her hand moving to her heart, and Arman felt his throat tighten. "She started coming earlier, staying longer, and she began teaching me properly," Katya said, smiling through gathering tears. "Every morning for 2 years, Mrs. Beg would sit with me during my breaks and teach me Urdu, tell me stories about Pakistan, about her family, her village near Islamabad, her children who were too busy to visit, and, in return, I gave her companionship, someone to talk to in her own language." The restaurant seemed to hold its breath. "She taught me your beautiful poetry, your prayers, your ways of showing respect. She taught me that Betty means daughter, and she called me that every single day." Katya's voice cracked. "Last year, Mrs. Beg fell ill. Her son finally came from another city, and I met him briefly at the hospital and before she passed. She held my hand and made me promise that I would never forget the language, that I would use it to bring joy to others the way it had brought joy to her. Tears were streaming down Farida's face now, and she was squeezing Katya's hand tightly. She said that language is not just words, it is home, it is memory. It is love, and that when you speak to someone in the language of their heart, you give them a gift that no money can buy. Armin felt something crack open inside his chest, a wall he hadn't even known he'd built around his heart. After she passed, I kept studying, Katya continued. I found online tutors. I watched Pakistani dramas. I practiced with customers when I could, because keeping this language alive kept her memory alive, and because I had learned that in this big, lonely world, sometimes the greatest thing you can do for another human being is simply to make them feel seen, heard, and remembered. Farida stood up suddenly, pulled Katya into a tight embrace, and began to sob, whispering in Urdu, "You are a blessing, my child. You are an angel. Mrs. Beg sent you to us today. I know it in my heart." Arman stood as well, his eyes burning, and when Katya finally pulled back from his mother's embrace, he looked at her and saw not just a waitress, not just an immigrant struggling to make ends meet, but a woman of extraordinary depth, compassion, and strength. "I don't know what to say," Arman admitted, his voice rough with emotion. "In my world of business, everything is transactions and negotiations, profit and loss, but what you just described, what you did for Mrs. Beg, and what you've just done for my mother, that is something of infinitely greater value." He paused, gathering his thoughts. "My mother has been here for 2 weeks, and I've been so busy with meetings and calls that I didn't realize how isolated she felt. I gave her a nice hotel room, a driver, money to shop, but I didn't give her what she really needed, which was connection." Farida placed a gentle hand on her son's arm, shaking her head as if to say he shouldn't blame himself. But Arman continued, "You've taught me something crucial tonight, that success means nothing if we forget the simple human things. The language of the heart, the gift of presence." Over the next hour, as Katya's shift ended and the restaurant manager, moved by the scene he had witnessed, gave her the rest of the night off, the three of them sat together and talked about Pakistan, about Russia, about dreams and losses, about family and the universal language of kindness. Armin learned that Katya was studying for a degree in international relations at night school, that she dreamed of working in cultural diplomacy, of building bridges between communities. "I want to help people understand that we are not so different," she said passionately. "Whether you are from Pakistan or Russia or anywhere else, we all love our mothers, we all miss home, we all need to be seen." Something shifted in Arman that night, a reorientation of priorities and values. He realized that in his pursuit of wealth and status, he had forgotten the lessons his own mother had taught him as a child in their small home in Lahore. Lessons about generosity, compassion, and the importance of serving others. The evening ended with Armin asking Katya if she would be willing to spend time with his mother during her remaining weeks in the city, to be her companion and friend, not as an employee, but as family, and Katya, with tears of gratitude, agreed. But Armin did more than that. Over the following weeks, as he watched Katya and his mother bond, visiting markets, cooking traditional meals together, laughing and sharing stories, he found himself examining his own life, his own choices. He started a foundation dedicated to helping immigrants learn and preserve their languages, providing free classes and cultural exchange programs. He began mentoring young entrepreneurs from marginalized communities, using his wealth and influence not just for profit but for purpose. He reconnected with his own roots, spending real time with his mother, learning again the stories of his grandfather and great-grandmother, understanding that wealth without heritage is poverty of the soul. On the day Farida was scheduled to fly back to Lahore, she held both Katya and Arman close and said, "My son came to this country and became rich, but today, he is truly wealthy because he has learned what really matters." She turned to Katya, "And you, my dear Betty. You came here with nothing, but you are richer than most, because you understand that the greatest currency in life is love, and the greatest investment is in people's hearts." Armin, standing in the airport departure hall, pressed an envelope into Katya's hands. "This is not charity," he said firmly when she tried to refuse. "This is a scholarship, full tuition for your degree, and a position at my foundation when you graduate, if you want it, because people like you, with your heart and your vision, are exactly who the world needs." Katya wept, and Farida wept, and even Arman felt tears on his cheeks, no longer ashamed of showing emotion. 6 months later, Katya stood at a podium at the Foundation's first annual gala. Now the director of cultural programs, telling the story of Mrs. Beg and the power of language to heal, connect, and transform. In the audience, Armin sat beside his mother, who had flown in for the event, and he realized that the moment in the restaurant had changed all of their lives forever. It had transformed a lonely immigrant into a leader, a busy billionaire into a man of purpose, and an elderly mother's visit into a divine appointment. The story spread, first locally, then nationally, then internationally. The Pakistani billionaire and the Russian waitress who reminded the world that our common humanity transcends all borders, that kindness is a language everyone understands, and that sometimes the most valuable thing you can hear is your mother tongue, spoken by an unexpected voice in an unexpected place. Moral: the richest treasures in life are not found in bank accounts or business empires, but in the simple, sacred moments when we recognize our shared humanity and choose to honor the language of another's heart, for in doing so, we discover the universal grammar of love that connects us all.